I heard the chandelier before I heard her voice. That faint, trembling ring above the dinner table, like it was nervous for me, right as my mother leaned in, her posture perfect, her tone effortless, and said, "We're only inviting you out of pity, Mara, so don't stay long." Forks paused midair. Claire smirked into her wine, savoring the moment. Julian swirled his scotch like the words were meant for someone else entirely, and Grant, my father, kept staring at his plate as if silence could make him innocent. I felt my face get warm, that familiar sting behind the eyes that makes your voice shaky. But my hands didn't tremble. I lifted my glass, held it gently, smiled like nothing had happened, took a single sip, and stood up from the table. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was going. No one even looked up. But 2 weeks later, every single one of them would. Before I go on, let me ask you something. Has anyone ever said something to you that hurt more because they didn't raise their voice at all? If your answer is yes, then come with me, because my story didn't end the way they expected. When I was a kid, there was only one place where I didn't feel invisible, the cabin at Lake Winora. Samuel, my grandfather, would wake me up before sunrise, and we'd walk down to the dock while the world was still asleep. The lake always looked like a sheet of silver waiting to breathe. He'd place a fishing rod in my hands, his big warm palms wrapping around mine, and we'd stand there in a silence that felt safe. At night, we sat by the fire, my fingers sticky with burnt marshmallows, and next to us sat his old cedar chest. Inside was the deed to the cabin, his most precious thing. One evening, when the flames were low and the crickets were loud, he said, "One day, this place will be yours to protect." I didn't understand the weight of those words at 12 years old, but I carried them like a promise for years. After he died, everything changed quietly. So quietly it almost looked polite. My parents took the cabin and folded it into something they started calling the family place, even though the deed remained in my name. Summer trips were planned in group chats that I wasn't invited to until every plan was already finalized. Pictures from those weekends began appearing around my parents' house. Julian posing with a fish he absolutely did not catch, Claire wrapped in a blanket on the porch, my parents smiling like they built the place with their bare hands. I wasn't in a single photo. In my family, attention wasn't shared, it was assigned. Julian was the golden child, Claire was adored, and me. I was the helper, the one who did the work, the extra pair of hands. When I made honor roll, no one showed up. When I worked 2 jobs to get through community college, Evelyn turned me into a cautionary tale. Make better choices than Mara. The cruelty was never loud. It was the slow, consistent kind. The night they forgot to set me a place at dinner. The birthday, Samuel was the only one who remembered. The day a teacher called to say I'd won a scholarship, and my parents said, "We didn't know she applied." There was one summer I tried to speak up. They were planning another cabin weekend, and I said softly, "I'd like to come too." Evelyn didn't even look up from her planner. "All the rooms are taken, maybe next year." Julian snorted. Claire didn't lift her eyes from her phone. I stood there holding a bag of groceries they'd asked me to pick up, snacks they claimed they needed, and no one noticed when I set the bag down and walked out. That was the day I learned something important. They wanted my silence, so I learned to live inside it. 2 nights after the dinner party, I was rinsing a mug in the kitchen when my phone lit up with a flood of notifications. The family group chat, something I hadn't opened in months. I dried my hands, tapped the screen, and scrolled. They were planning the annual trip to the cabin. Julian sent a picture of a new outdoor grill he wanted to bring. Claire suggested matching family shirts, joking about how cute the photos would look. Evelyn typed long paragraphs about groceries and sleeping arrangements. My name wasn't mentioned once, not as a guest, not as an afterthought. It felt like watching a play I'd been written out of but accidentally left in the credits. Then I saw a message that made my stomach drop. "All the bedrooms are taken. Mara doesn't come anyway. We'll use her key if she forgets to drop it off." Her key. As if I wasn't the only legal owner. Right then another notification popped up at the top of the screen. An email from the bank. I clicked it without thinking. It was a reminder about a joint account I didn't remember agreeing to. My name appeared right beside Evelyn's. At the bottom of the statement, there was a note. A property tax auto payment linked to my profile. Payments for the cabin. Payments I never authorized. I stared at the screen. The refrigerator hummed, a car passed outside, and the quiet in the kitchen felt like pressure on my chest. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't just the forgotten one. I was a signature they used when paperwork needed someone responsible. I put the phone down on the table, screen face down. It buzzed again and again, rattling against the wood like something trying to crawl back into my attention. I didn't pick it up. Instead, I sat in the old chair by the window, pulled my knees to my chest, and watched the city lights flicker. When I closed my eyes, something in me clicked. Not anger, not even sadness, just clarity. A quiet smile crossed my face, the kind no one in my family ever noticed. But they would, soon. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. The apartment was still, washed in that soft gray light that makes everything feel calmer. I tied my hair back, padded barefoot into the kitchen, and started the coffee maker. Its slow drip sounded like a metronome marking the beginning of something I hadn't planned, but somehow knew was right. I sat at my small wooden table, the one covered in scratches from years of work, and opened a fresh page in my notebook. The pen felt heavy, but the words came easily. 3 lines: sell the cabin, close joint accounts, call lawyer, a plan built from silence and clarity. I opened my old metal filing cabinet. It groaned the way it always did. Inside were years of papers, bank statements, tax letters, utility bills, things most people throw away. I kept everything, not out of sentiment but survival. Wrapped in an old envelope near the back, I found the deed Samuel left me. The paper was slightly yellowed, still smelling faintly of cedar. I placed it flat on the table, smoothing the edges. At 7:14 a.m., I called Marcus, a lawyer I trusted. He answered, sounding half asleep. Mara, everything okay? I need to sell the cabin, I said, steady and calm. He paused. The one at Lake Winora? I thought your family used it. They do, I replied, but they don't own it. I could hear the shift in his breathing, the realization that something much bigger was happening. All right, he said carefully. Send me everything. I scanned the deed page by page, the soft hum of the scanner filling the quiet room, and emailed everything to him. Then I logged into the bank portal. The screen glowed cold and blue. My name appeared in places I never expected. Co-signer on an old checking account, secondary on a credit line, linked to automatic payments for taxes I didn't owe. I clicked through each one, reading signatures, dates, fine print. Some went back years. I closed accounts. I removed my name. I canceled every auto payment. Each click sounded like distant dominoes falling, one after the other. My phone buzzed again. Claire. Mom's planning the trip. Are you coming or not? I let the message fade. By noon, I had detached myself from every financial string they'd tied to me. Next, I emailed Dr. Cole, the estate lawyer my parents trusted. My message was short, but firm. I would like to review all documents related to the family estate and ensure my rights are properly represented. Please advise on available dates. Regards, Mara. I read it twice, then hit send. Another voicemail notification came in. Evelyn's voice, no doubt, but I ignored it. I cleaned the table, organized the documents into a neat pile, and stood back. The apartment felt different, sharper, like the edges of things were finally visible. The plan wasn't emotional, it wasn't loud, it was exact. Mine. 2 weeks passed, just enough time for silence to settle into my apartment like a second layer of paint. I cooked, worked, slept, repeated, nothing dramatic, just life moving forward in a quiet, steady rhythm. Then one morning, a message from Marcus. Offer came in, cash buyer, closing soon. I read it twice, not because I didn't believe it, but because it felt strangely distant, like it was happening to someone else. I replied with one word: approved. By noon, the cabin was no longer mine, and I didn't tell anyone, but they found out anyway. That evening, the family group chat exploded. Claire: did someone change the lock code at the cabin? Julian: why is there a realtor sign outside? Evelyn: this has to be a mistake. Call me now. A flood of messages kept coming, each more frantic than the last. I didn't open the thread. I just watched the previews stack on my lock screen. Then Evelyn called. 3 times. Then voicemails. Mara, this is not funny. Another: you had no right. This isn't just your decision. And then cracking. Mara, please. You're scaring me. Call me back. I didn't. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table sipping lukewarm coffee, watching the voicemail counter climb like a timer. Then came the bank notifications. Evelyn sent a picture, blurry but clear enough. Joint account closed. Credit line suspended. Property tax autopay failed. She didn't add a message. She didn't need to. The panic was written in every pixel. Minutes later, Julian called, again and again. Eventually, he texted, "What the hell is going on?" I placed the phone face down. The vibration rattled softly against the wood. The apartment felt smaller, the air thicker. Then came the sound I'd been expecting, a heavy knock on the door, followed by the buzzer. I pressed the intercom. "It's Grant. Open up." His voice didn't carry authority this time. It carried uncertainty. I buzzed him in, stepped back, and crossed my arms. He pushed the door open hard. His face was flushed, his breathing uneven. He looked around the apartment slowly, taking in the mismatched furniture, the neat folders on the table, the quiet. "Is it true?" he asked. "Did you sell the cabin?" "Yes." "You closed the accounts? Removed your name from everything?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Do you understand what you've done?" I nodded once. "Completely." His exhale was long and shaky, like someone realizing a door had been shut from the outside. "All right," he said quietly, almost defeated. "You've made your point." I straightened. "No," I said. "I haven't." He finally looked at me, really looked, not through me, at me. I slid a small envelope across the counter, Marcus's letter. "A lawyer's notice is on its way," I said. "You should read it." His expression didn't break, but something inside him did. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet folding, like a structure losing its support. He turned, opened the door, and walked out. And for the first time in my life, the silence he left behind felt like it belonged to me, not them. The next morning felt brighter than it should have. Sunlight came in soft lines through my thin curtains. I poured coffee into my chipped mug and stood by the window. The world moved below me, cars merging, people walking, a dog pulling its owner toward a park. Ordinary things, things that didn't need my permission or my presence. My phone buzzed on the counter. Claire. "Mom wants to apologize. Can we talk?" Julian. "We didn't know things were this bad." I didn't touch the phone. I let the screen dim on its own. The deed was gone. The accounts were closed. The legal letter was already moving through the system. These weren't symbols anymore. They were decisions, finished ones. For the first time in years, I didn't feel suspended between resentment and obligation. I felt grounded, like someone stepping onto their porch after a storm and realizing the world is quiet again. I thought of Samuel, his voice steady, his promise gentle. Protect what's yours. I tried for years to honor that by holding on, but sometimes protecting something means letting it go. I closed my eyes and breathed in. The air smelled like coffee and morning light. When I opened my eyes, the silence around me wasn't the kind they forced on me. It was the kind I chose. I didn't cut them off. I just stopped signing my name under their chaos. Some endings don't slam shut. They settle, like dust, like a door easing closed on its own. And if you've ever reclaimed your quiet, your real, honest quiet, you know the sound it makes. It isn't loud. It isn't angry. It's the soft click of a life finally belonging to you. If you've ever lived something like this, let your voice be heard. Share the thing that stayed silent the longest. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to choose themselves.